Hi, ich bin Ella von der Stromlos Jazzredaktion. Ich bin hier mit Ashlin Parker, dem Trompeter der Late Night Band, auf der Jazz Party 2 heute.
What's up?
I was interested about the Trumpet Mafia project because, as you know, the Stromlos Jazzredaktion visited New Orleans last year. And we visited you, of course, and we visited your Trumpet Mafia, and we got to know them. How did that whole project started?
Well, we started as a practice group, actually, with all the trumpet players, or many trumpet players, in New Orleans. It was a really hot August in July, I think 2013, and we all practiced from 10 a.m. to about 6 p.m. every day because tourism dries up a little bit during the summer, so it gives everybody kind of some extra time. And I don't know one trumpet player that is content in their abilities on the trumpet. We are all trying to get better, and it's interesting when you have a variety of different trumpet players. You'll have folks that are good at this and weak at this, and so it becomes a forum. You know, if we introduce a problem to the group, we have maybe 8, 9 different practices to achieve this goal. So it becomes just very, everybody that came benefited from it and came back and came back.
We're just like inviting players to your home, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think maybe after that 2-month period, there was at least 30 trumpet players that had came to think, and even folks from Europe and other places heard about we would just call it a trumpet shed, which means trumpet practice, and so they even made the hang. Now, one time we were playing, this was just a couple months later, and we had Igor Bootman from Russia. His big band was in town. The Russian trumpet section that he had went and practiced with me.
Really?
And we had this awesome, crazy, my nose was bleeding. I mean, we were going so hard, it was ridiculous. But he noticed, one of the trumpet players noticed that every 5 or 10 minutes, another trumpet player from New Orleans would walk in on his way to a gig, and just come and warm up, see what we're up to. And he was just like, this is ridiculous. There's how many trumpet players? This is like a trumpet mafia. And we were like, that's exactly what it is. So he coined it that day. And before we had no intentions in performing. We were just a practice group. And what happened was we started practicing in harmony and figuring out other ways to organize all these trumpets in one space. And we realized, man, we sound good. Let's roll up on some clubs. So then we'd go to a friend's gig with 10 or 11 trumpet players, play one song huge, and then just disappear. People are like, what is that? And so people started to hear about this Trumpet Mafia, and it became this like urban legend kind of thing. We're here, but you don't know where we are and all this stuff. But anyway, so we did our first performance at Jazz Fest 4 Jazz Fest ago. And it was such a hit that people are grabbing onto it.
I mean, I also seen you at Jazz Fest.
Yeah.
But how many are you? Are you like approximate number, or you just like anyone can come and go?
Yeah, everyone can come and go. We have folks that were here from the beginning that have never been able to make a performance because they had other obligations. But they're still part of the practice group. They're still part of the culture of the thing, and there's no hard feelings because if people don't show up, that's always just a little less money that I'm losing now. So I'm happy. It gets me a little bit more out of the red because of the size of the group. Most of the time we have upwards to 20 trumpet players on stage, so it's a very hard thing.
I heard it in the small jazz club. It was just like
right. And Julius,
so loud.
Yeah, and Julius at that jazz club is super generous because, as you know, there was probably just as many people in the audience as on stage, if not less.
Like,
and
everyone was like moving to the stage. Okay.
Right. And so prime example is one of my favorite clubs in New Orleans for these, you know, he really invests, you know, his time and money in projects that he believes in, and you know, we're happy to be able to play there.
But do you think it's also because of the city New Orleans? Do you think it would be possible to have this kind of crazy project in another city?
You think I think it is, but I don't think it's possible. Yeah, anything's possible for us, first of all.
Okay, but you know my point.
But you know, even you know, jazz itself. Like I think you know, other cities have plenty of opportunity to further the jazz and extend it this way and fuse it this way. But the actual creation of that, it's like so New Orleans. It's such a New Orleans creation, and it's so obvious when you spend time there that you know it's still bubbling from the streets. You know,
sure.
You see a little 4-year-old.
Yeah, I had the impression like this is only happening in
Yeah, you see a little 4-year-old kid, you know, that's already, you know,
you have the
swinging. I'm just like, it's very bizarre.
Yeah,
you know?
the youngest. How old is he?
He started out when he was 6, so I think he's 10 now, and we have the last one. We had 4 12-year-olds in our mix who are all. Some of them are the nephews of some of our other trumpet players. They're all related, you know. It's all in the family. Trumpet Mafia.
I mean, I heard this.
But there's a certain flat line. There's like maybe a lack of the class system that's in a lot of other places in New Orleans. Yeah. For instance, like rich people don't necessarily live better than me. You know, it's like if you have a Ferrari, we have potholes, so you can't drive that fast anyway. So there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of actors and they like vacationing in New Orleans for 2 reasons. One is it's New Orleans, and 2 is nobody really pays them any mind. And they actually finally kind of get away from the paparazzi and all that stuff. It's like nobody cares, you know. It's like if I were to send a tweet that Denzel Washington is at Snug Harbor tonight, right now. He's like, right now. Like, no, if people would say, well, is he gonna play? Is he gonna play? What does he play? Like, I mean, nobody cares. That's not gonna be entertaining enough, just his presence. You know? But so I have a theory that basically New Orleans, you know, has this already template for togetherness. In other places, there's a very clear template for competition, you know, and folks have to, like for instance in New York, you know, there's so many people and everything's so fast, you have to be better than the next guy if you want to get noticed, and that really helps push the music to its furthest abilities, higher, faster, louder, whatever, you know, you gotta, you know, whatever you can do more than the next cat. And so this sets up an environment to push the limits of this music, you know. But it's hard for any of those guys to get on the exact same page to create something because they're always trying to get
that's what you guys
ahead. Yeah, so we're all doing the same thing kind of vibe, you know. But at the same time, once it's organized, we have folks in New York. New York folks want the same thing. They want to practice. It's actually harder for them to find a practice space than for us, you know? It's like,
they just pop into your house and like, hi Ashlin, what's up?
Exactly. You know, in New York, you want to put 5 trumpets in somebody's apartment building, you're going to get kicked out, you know? You're going to get kicked out. And we rarely have 5, we have 20.
What's your neighbors say, by the way?
They're from New Orleans, so I remember my neighbor told me, she says, I'm so sorry, one day I fell asleep while you're practicing. I really wanted to hear what you guys were doing, and she apologized for falling asleep, you know. And I was like, that's New Orleans for you, you know? Yeah.
I had that impression. Yeah.
Right.
So my final question is like, how do you like Ingolstadt?
I love Ingolstadt. I always love coming to Ingolstadt, you know.
Is he, or how many times have you been here?
I'm actually not sure, and we have to look at some paperwork. But it's 7 or 8 years. I've been
since I can remember. I mean, I've been to jazz parties since I was, I don't know, like 10, 11, 12 years old. I always saw you play.
Yeah, right.
I never had it like.
That's crazy. That's
crazy.
You. And I would love to bring. I'd love to bring the Trumpet Mafia here one time, and
we'd love to.
And the whole thing is, you know, I'll bring, you know, some of my top players, and then grab some of Munich and Berlin, and you know, and grab basically local cats and fill out something that continues when we go back. That's the whole point. We want these guys practicing together, you know, and challenging each other and pushing each other. I mean, that's the whole thing, you know, and it's cool to have a space that, you know, is comfortable to do so. And I've noticed even here, folks are uncomfortable with sitting in. They need to know it's going to be okay. You know, it's like
I think guys would freak out if you had enough years.
Yeah, it would be cool.
I would freak out.
Yeah, well, it would be cool. We might need to offer special Trumpet Mafia earplugs for the audience. Because
what?
We don't need all those microphones. For one, we don't need all those microphones. We have them built in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Ashlin.
Yeah, no
and
problem.
I think we're gonna have a great night tonight.
Yeah, we are.
Although Trumpet Mafia is not here, but you're here, and late night musicians are here. We're gonna hear Incognito now.
One man mafia tonight.
Tonight.